Come on, come on. I know you're sleeping now. You gotta wake up small, yeah? Okay, let's go. The people who us, the people lie to us. The government betray us. They betray us so much. I said they lie. The people who us, the people lie to us. The government betray us. They can lie, they can steal, they will not the I said we tired with their lies. We tired with their promises that left us to all our damages. We tired with their speech they preach indeed and now unique they deceive us. The thing we saw it frustrate us. So why can't you lie? Why can't you steal? Why can't you allow the citizens to be? You see, we just tell you that's why we voted you. But you fool us, you screw us, you use us and later on abuse us. So why? The government should lie. Why? But that's the question that we ask. The people fool us, the people lie to us. The government betray us, they betray us so much. I said they lie. The people fool us, the people lie to us. The government betray us. They can lie, they can steal, they will not to corrupt. No one to trust. My people don't want to hope on. Nobody. My hope that I have been broken. I'm telling you, brother. So where are the schools? Where are the roads? Where are the jobs that they say they go for? But they too selfish. The people tired with their rhetoric. People tired. You see the reason why we ask why the government betray. They have enough of time, but then instead they delay. People suffer. No work for people crying for hunger. Look at. Your vision and your mission, your intention to the nation. They poor. You got nothing to show. Nothing. So why? The government should lie. Why? But that's the question that we ask. The people fool us. The people lie to us. The government betray us. They betray us so much. I said they lie. The people fool us. The people lie to us. The government betray us. They can lie, they can steal, they will not corrupt. We tired with the promises that left us to all our damages. We tired with that speech they preach indeed and now unique they deceive us. The thing we saw it frustrate us. So why can't you lie? Why can't you steal? Why can't you allow the citizens to be? You see, we just tell you that's why we voted you. But you fool us, you screw us, you use us and later on abuse us. So why? The government should lie. Why?
That's the important question. Why government in any capacity should lie? Anyway, folks, this is Tukpah. Welcome to today's edition of the Reimagine, Restart, Rebuild Liberia series. On this show, we try to talk about the pertinent things, the things that affect our country, the fundamentals that we need to build on to really restart where we are. These are very, very important topics that we'll try to bring to you. For today's edition, we are going to be focusing on the National Elections Commission, the recent election, what many have now perceived as technical difficulties. We'll try to break that down. Then we'll talk about the involvement of different parties, different stakeholders into this political process to allow a greater level of transparency and accountability so that this process is just not seen as neck just on one side operating and the rest of us here with no visibility into what they're saying, what they are doing, no clear understanding of what they are doing or why they are doing what they are doing, and hopefully be able to address some of the other issues around collaboration in this process. So let me play another minute or two of music while my partner, he's booting up and he's coming on soon.
My people, where you at? Where you at? Wake up from your slumber, stop sleeping. Whip your hands, whip your hands, whip your hands, whip your. Come on, come on, come on. I know y'all sleeping now. Y'all gotta whip up some more, yeah? Okay, let's go.
So that was short. That was short. So we now have with us my co-host, Mr. George FAHNBULLEH. George, how are you today? You're on mute. You gotta get on mute. Still on mute. So I can't unmute you because your mic is not connected. So folks, bear with us. We do have these technical problems.
Can you hear me now?
But oh, George should be unmuted now. George, are you unmuted?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
I think I can hear you too. All right, wonderful. So I just briefly gave an intro about what we're going to be talking about, today with regards to visibility into the National Elections Commission, recent elections, efforts around that, and just how we can envision going forward, because this whole series that we have kind of put together is about reimagining, rebuilding, restarting. And this is one of the areas where a lot of groundwork still need to take place. And hopefully we'll be able to provide our listening audience some decent insight as to what we are thinking and what should be happening. So we can look to you now for any kind of introductory comment you want to make, and then we can start the discussion.
Yeah, hang on. You know what? I'm going to cut off my Bluetooth.
Okay.
Yeah, I just did an update this morning. And default microphone, let's see, USB.
I can hear you now, though.
All right, you can hear me now?
Yeah, clearly, powerful.
Okay, great. So, I would just tell you, I don't know if you want us to get into a background of what exactly happened on the Election Commission website or not.
We can, and just so people can understand, because there's this perception about fraud, there's this conception about system problems, there's this idea also about the print function, and then there's also the issue of incompetence. So how we kind of can wrap that around so people can understand it, from a basic level, I think is important.
Okay, so I think what you should do is let's go through the initial presentation of the results.
Right. Okay.
And what happened after that on Thursday.
Okay. So essentially the NEC did all the numbers and everything. We're assuming they got all the correct tally sheets from everywhere. They input the information, and they presented the information on the website. And when people went to visit the NEC website, the way the data is structured, you can go from the overall NEC page, you can click on election results and get to a page that has a map of the different counties. Now, knowing that these by-elections were specifically for Lofa, you click on Lofa County, and then you come to the high-level results for Lofa with the different precincts. If you click on any one precinct, you will get the summary of the precinct along with an option to be able to click on polling places results. And that first pop-up screen when you click on precincts that gave you the summary of precinct, initially it had a print option. When you click that print option, it prints the results for you. Unfortunately, whatever the issue was, the printed results were different from the actual results that were input by NEC. So this caused an alarm to some people. And when you go to the individual polling places, similar print issues in terms of discrepancy between like the printer, the print preview output versus the actual information that's in the system. So most people were calling this fraud. I came from the perspective in my post that either it was fraud or there was a system problem. And having conversations with different people, especially people with expertise in data and HTML coding and other stuff like that, we have come to the general position that this whole issue was not a fraud per se. If it was fraud, maybe it happened before, but not in the information that was being presented by NEC. So if you want to enhance that any further, George, in terms of the background of this whole issue.
Okay, so, I mean, here's the issue, okay? Some people were quick to jump to fraud. And I think the whole thing was exacerbated by the NEC not being truthful and straight and forthcoming. Because the NEC went ahead and took down the print capability, or just took the whole thing down.
Yeah, I was actually on the site at the time, right? Because I wanted to validate some of these things. Our like police.
They took the whole thing down.
Took the site down.
And the NEC said, the NEC director said they were victims of hacking.
They actually put out a release to that.
Yeah, it was an attempted hacking. My position was, if they're claiming that the irregularities in the data that was displayed was a result of an attempted hacking, then the hacking was not attempted. It was actually accomplished.
Right, it was done.
Okay? Because according to you, the reason the data is wrong is because somebody was trying to change the results. And we see that the results were wrong. So I then made a post and said, never admit to incompetence what you can blame on fraud. So I maintained from the beginning, because of my own background in database design and reporting. So just let me give people a little bit of my background.
Sure.
At one point, I was an authorized Crystal Reports engineer.
What is Crystal Reports?
People understand what Crystal Reports is, but it's one of the largest reporting platforms in the world.
Or software producers for reports, basically.
Right. And all it does, it produces reports. Now, just let's go back. There are 4 basic database functions that every relational database has to be able to perform. And those functions are called CRUD, C-R-U-D. Create, retrieve, update, and delete. Okay? Those are the 4 basic functions. When you create data, you need to be able to write data to a table. If you got 50 people in this county, you would type in 50 and you hit save, and it would create that record. then you would say, select the number of people in this county, and it will retrieve that record for you. That's the R part of the retrieval. Okay. Then you realize that you don't have 50 people, you actually have 65. Right? And then you go back and you say, well, I want to change the number of people in this county from 50 to 65. That will be an update. And then finally, you might say, okay, you know what? We just want to delete this county completely. And then you will use the delete function, the delete type query. So those are the 4 basic functions. When you're doing reporting, however, you're only using one of those functions, and that's retrieving. Okay? You're not creating any new data, you're not updating any data, and you're not deleting any data. So all you have is a retrieval, and it's a retrieval function, and then you will write the store procedures so that you can aggregate the data. So what I figured out happened before I even looked at their source code was that the person or the people who wrote the query to gather to aggregate the data wrote it wrong. And so people were saying, oh, it has to be fraud. And I can tell you now, after actually looking at the source code for the page, it's absolutely not fraud. It's incompetence. Okay? There is zero fraud there. But the larger issue is that the incompetence is so bad that it will end up hurting the parties in the future. If they don't get together and decide how they're going to deal with this, it's going to be a problem. So, what the NEC did when they brought back the site, when they brought the site back up, they deleted the print function, meaning so when you design a report, the report will show up on a web page. The problem is when you in HTML, there aren't margins like you would want to print on an 8.5 by 11 page.
And just tell them HTML is the language they use.
It's the language you use. It means hypertext markup language.
Yeah.
Okay. But it doesn't have margins. Okay. And also it doesn't persist. And let me see if I can explain what I mean by persistence. Persistence means when you're on a web page, everything you're seeing on that web page is what was downloaded when you went to it. So for example, when you see the say page loading at the bottom, at the status bar of the page, it means it's retrieving all that data. But that data is static.
Right, it's not dynamic.
Meaning it's not persistent. If you go to a different page, it downloads the same data again. Okay? But it doesn't store it so that as the values change, it will change. Anyway, what happens is when you hit the print button, it's supposed to say, I want to get all the data from the database for this district. And then it's supposed to organize it in a nice, 8.5 by 11 format so it can be printed. And what happened there is the data aggregation portion of the calculation was wrong. So today, NEC allows us to bring up the
precincts and the polling places results.
And the voting precincts and polling places. Well, one of the things you can do is you can right-click and view the source code of the page.
Right.
Now, depending on how good you are,
the page and the pop-ups, you can view
depending on how good you are as a developer, there's certain things that you will not show. Okay, in the source, there are ways to make it so that, especially with your data queries and stuff like that, they will not show up. What I found really interesting in the source code, Isaac, can you show that graphic, the picture that I sent you?
All right.
With the source code?
Yeah. Okay, let me share it now.
So I want them to see.
Can you see it?
I don't know if everybody can see this.
Well, you don't think it's big enough?
Yeah, make it bigger.
I will have to copy and expand it, but I think it's big enough.
Okay. So one of the things I want you guys to see here is this is a function. This is a JavaScript function that is being passed to the URL called precinct2.php right here, to precinct2.php. But it looks like the data that is being passed is employee ID. So what this tells me, and then it wants them to show the employee detail. Okay,
there
right.
you go.
So you see where it says data modal show? A modal page is a page that pops up is a window that pops up on top of a page. So once that page pops up, you can't get back to the original page unless you close that modal. So for example, when you say select the precinct, and let's just 21003,
right,
then you get that pop-up.
Yep.
That's the modal. Okay? And basically, if you click on the back of the page, the modal page goes away. So then my question becomes, why are you passing an employee ID when you should actually be passing the precinct ID? You see what I'm saying?
Right. So
that's what you should be passing.
We don't even know what employee ID means. Like I was telling you.
So this is what I gather.
Okay.
What I gather is that they found a template, right? And they didn't know how to change the template. So you can write the query and say, you can write a SQL query and say precinct ID as employee ID. Okay. Right. And so it will see it, it will send it to the database without actually changing the database, except that you will call precinct ID and employee ID. So that's how they made it fit. So when they reached the point where the calculation was wrong, they didn't know how to fix it. And that's why right now the print button is disabled.
So I will stop sharing this. I think we are back, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So if people want, I can walk you through on the website, the NET website, what George is talking about, how when you come from the home page, maybe we should, just so people can understand how this is going. Let's go just to the home page and see. Share screen. So George, do you see the page?
Yeah, I see the page.
So this is the home page for NET. When you come on here to get elections results, referendum results, you click on this this portion right here, elections and referendum results. Then it gives you the dashboard of the elections results. So they call it the results portal. And then each county is represented on a map. And then if you scroll to or you hover over any county, it will give you the results, right? So for right now, we're talking about the 2022 senatorial by-elections result for Lofa County. So if we click on Lofa, we get the different precinct results, right? This is the summary result below here, where we know there was 60,000 valid votes, 2,125 invalid.
Okay, but it's not changing on the web.
No, it's not changing. But now
we're still at the main page. When you click up elections and referendum results.
Right.
Okay. So, let me tell you what's going on.
So this the page you're talking about here, right? When you click on the election referendum result, this is
supposed to change. Let me tell you what's going on. What they have is a persistent cookie, and that's also wrong. Because the browser that you're using, if you switch browsers, you will see that it will work.
What will work? I mean,
that link will work. It will open the other stuff. So what browser are you using here?
There's a Chrome browser. I can go to an Edge browser.
Go to Edge and you will see that it will work because you haven't opened it in Edge. So what it tells you is that the cookie that was there when the failure occurred is still there. And you can code for how long a cookie should persist.
But I'm saying
if
it is giving the results. These results not supposed to change though.
But I'm not seeing any results on your page on the screen.
You're not?
No.
Oh, okay. So then I probably need to. It goes into another tab. It doesn't stay with the same tab. So maybe you're not seeing.
Telling you change your browser because we're not seeing it on the screen.
So I probably need to stop sharing, come back and say share again, and go to that next window. You know what? Let me just do window and see if that would do it. George, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Do you see the results?
Okay, now you're there.
Okay, because I'm doing.
So click on Lofa County.
So you click on the county, right? And this is where you get.
And click on any one of the districts.
Right. There's the precinct summary right here.
Right.
Or the overall summary actually. And then you click on a specific precinct, electoral district 1. And this is the summary for that particular district.
So if you right click on that and say view source.
Right. If you right click and say view source, or just probably inspect at this point.
Just if you hit F12, you will view the source. You got to go back. Okay, hit F12.
But how come I was able to view source earlier?
Okay,
so you can see the coding.
Right. So if you scroll down.
I think we're getting too technical for our folks.
Okay, but
I think this shares with them
this is
the background that you were talking about.
Right.
And the fact that when you click on the actual, let's get out of this source code thing. When you click
the more body in the code,
it disappears.
The more body in the code is called employee detail.
Yes.
Okay. So this is really ridiculous. Okay. This is bad, and it is on the scale of bad where it's catastrophic. Let me tell you what happened. The developer purchased a template for employees.
Right.
Okay.
So it is customizable to election stuff, but you have to have the expertise. And
basically, every electoral district, right? These are all in their mind employees. Each one of these are employees, right? And when you click on it, it shows you the modal for the employee detail. Okay, I don't know what they're doing there, but you know that's why they can't fix it.
It doesn't translate well. It doesn't translate well.
They tried, and what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to design this stuff. There are tools that allow you to connect to the database and all that kind of stuff. So what the parties have to understand, I don't care what your differences are. I don't care whether you guys want to be in a coalition or not. Everybody.
John, I gotta show this. I gotta show this before.
Everybody, every party has an interest in having the system work to count and report the data correctly.
Correctly. That should be a national interest.
Okay. So even if you say we will never work together, if you say we will never be on the same ticket, you still have the same interest of having the votes counted correctly. Because let me tell you what's going to happen. If this thing goes like this, more than likely, Mr. Weah will win. And then the parties will start to complain. They will call ECOWAS. There is not a party in an organization in the world that will say, okay, Mr. Weah, you step down and let Mr. Uri become president. It will never happen. They will tell you, you know what? Maybe you got a case, but we can't prove it. So Mr. Weah just has to stay there.
Yeah, for peace sake.
Okay. Now, it is ignorant. It is short-sighted. It is stupid for you to get this type of red notice from the NEC of their incompetence and not be willing to do anything about it.
We have to do something about it. We have to make the case for NEC.
These people literally do not know what they're doing.
And that's why when it comes to this whole election database, the presentation of information, even going to the actual database itself.
So the next question is,
records we talked about before, you know, share with the people what happened last election. I mean, it's good for them to know.
Well, in the last election, I can tell you this right now. There were, as a matter of fact, all you got to do is go to Front Page Africa, look for FAHNBULLEH and look for elections. You will see the articles that I wrote about how the database was so poorly designed. It was like it was done by a third grader. Okay, listen, there was no denial of service. Okay, you don't understand what denial of service is. The person who, COSTA, you don't understand what denial of service is. Okay, a denial of service attack.
COSTA said he's learning and he talking about denial of service. Yeah,
right. A denial of service attack is where they send so many requests and the website is not able to respond.
Right, the volume is too much.
And basically, the website crashes under the load. This is not what we're talking about. What we're talking about, the people are saying somebody changed the data. You can still access the site. So it's not a denial of service. Okay? Walter, it's not arranged. You're dealing with people who don't know what they are doing. I would challenge the lady who's in charge of the NEC to make this stuff available for inspection. Okay? But here's how you fix it. And here's how the parties should go about addressing it. When you develop a database system, normally the best practice is to have 3 copies of your database. 1 copy is for development. That's where you design the tables, you design the relationships, and all of that kind of stuff, and you produce something called an ERD. An ERD is an entity relationship diagram.
Yeah.
It shows how all the tables are related to each other. Okay. So you will produce the entity relationship diagram. Then your next database is called your test database. In that test database is where you write what's called your business logic. Okay, you write the queries and the stored procedures that allow you to put data in, or that allow a user to put data into the database to do all the CRUD functions that need to be done: create, retrieve, update, and delete. Okay, and then once you've gone through that test phase and you've tested everything, and you will freeze that database and you will move it to production. There are never any changes made to the production database, because the production database is what the public is actually seeing. That's what they're actually using. Okay? So what the parties should want now, they should want a blank copy of the last frozen test database for inspection.
Are you sure they have a test database?
Well, I don't believe they do, because here's
I
why.
don't either. I don't.
In the test database, this is where you would get the group that's designing your reports to do the report design and test it.
And that's where they were made these edits and corrections.
And that's where, and you even have to come up with a test plan, right? If I click the print button, does it open the detail page? The numbers that are on the detail page, are they correct? And somebody will go through a sheet and check each of those. And if they had done that, they would record it.
I would love to see how they went from development to production.
To production.
That whole testing phase seems like it was.
And it's obvious that the testing was bad. But here's the thing. What this tells me is that inside the NEC, they don't have the ability to even inspect the code that's on the that they're using for reporting. Okay?
I mean, I
this
agree.
Should have never been done this way. There are reporting tools that report just on database. So for example, if you're using SQL Server has a tool called SQL Server Reporting Services. Okay? And you buy that and you use that platform to generate all the reports. There's a company called Telerik, Telerik. They have a reporting engine. The reporting tool set that I use is called Dev Express, DEV Express. They have a report server and everything. So designing reports is a separate part of the whole development process. Because the people who are designing reports, remember now, they're not making any changes to the data. So at the end of the day, it tells me that NEC doesn't even have that function in-house.
And that's why
all they were doing is they were inspecting the pages and not actually saying, let's see what the code looks like. What are you using to do this? Because at the end of, NEC is supposed to own all of these tools, these data design tools in-house. So when they bring a developer in, they will say to the developer, these are the tools that we use in-house. These are the tools you have to use. So it's a huge problem.
It is a huge problem, but the problem doesn't even start from there, George. The problem starts from this whole education of our people on how to vote, for one. Two, getting out the vote. We saw that only 33% of the 187,000 people in Lofa County were able to come to vote. And that's the 62,000 that voted. Then whoever were supposed to be the the poll watchers. I doubt if the UP had the poll watchers out there on time or early enough to confirm that all the ballot boxes were empty as they came in, that there was nothing already stuffed in those ballot boxes. That's the first thing. The second thing, were all of them there for the actual counting, because the counting was being done in the dark. So John Peter, who can be the head at a polling place when they're counting the numbers, he can pick up a form and put it up there like he's being transparent and say Galama, Kotima, or Jala. But you can't even see if it's really Jala or not. And you just mark your sheet. So that level of being on point to validate every information that is saying at that point is so critical. And I think in some instances, some polling centers, people were not on point at that level. And there's always the possibility of people being compromised at specific polling centers where they know there's, a huge population to say anything goes. Yeah, let's 200, yeah, let's 500. So how Unity Party protected against that, I have no idea.
Isaac, I would just tell you, I understand the procedural things that need to happen. Mm-hmm. My concern is that the fact that there is no system that the NEC has, and all of this stuff is a lie. And if any member of the legislature is looking at it, y'all need to call the NEC and have them present this stuff and bring experts from outside to look at it. And they have nothing.
For a lot of time, the legislature pretends they don't bring real experts to validate these in these instances.
Put it to you this way: I have enough expertise to tell you that the NEC has nothing, and that's why they can't even resolve the problem. Okay. Of bringing up the print after 5 days. You know why? Because they're trying to print employee detail from a county database where there's no employee there. And they don't know how to fix the query so that it works.
And that's where political parties now have to hop on, especially opposition political parties, to demand transparency, to demand explanation, to demand that they go through these trials to ensure that this system is correct.
Listen, the NEC can freeze the database for the last iteration before they went to production, and they can give a copy to the political parties. It doesn't change the NEC's data.
George, the political parties have to demand that. Do you know what they were giving before? They were giving PDFs. They were giving PDFs.
You need to give them a copy of the database, because here's the thing.
Millions of records.
You can buy data tools. Okay?
No.
Okay, wait a minute. You know something?
Uh-huh.
I noticed that Liberians have started this thing now where they say nobody's stupid here. and if you have to declare at the beginning of a conversation that you are not stupid, guess what? You're stupid. Now, let me deal with Bobby Benito. Bobby Benito, do you know what a database is?
But George, please do not waste your time.
No, I want this idiot to tell me if he even knows what a database is.
He does not.
Because what you have in Liberia, no, Isaac, this bothers me.
It bothers me,
stupid people like these.
There's somebody like Bobby Benito who is totally ignorant of everything we're talking about here. Will come in. He's just trying to interrupt the flow of this discussion. That's his role.
I want to call him out as the idiot that he is.
Okay.
Listen, when you go into a room and people are talking about things you don't understand, you shut up. That's what you do. Okay? Stupid people like you should not be involved in high-level technical discussions. Okay? Nobody's stupid here. You are stupid.
Again, let somebody else see. Don't waste your time. Bobby is a semi-professional boxer whose brain has already been rattled. So he's in some advanced stages of.
I just want to make it clear that I will not tolerate nonsense from people when I'm talking about an area that I'm an expert in. Okay, George, I will not tolerate it.
George, what have we said about the typical Liberian?
Okay,
even if they work in a
your 67 IQ, you don't bring it over here.
They work in the finance building, they become finance expert.
Okay.
So Bobby is just one of those people who like that.
So at the end of the day,
he would tell you, say he's the financial expert in the building.
That I am really shocked at what I've seen from this source code.
George, again, we have to take this up at the highest level of political parties. It's just too critical, especially for what the 2023 elections represent, for us to take this for granted and let NEC just move smoothly towards this process. Everything from this point on, the biometrics, the new registration, that whole process, political parties have to be side by side. They got to demand the presence with NEC in all of this process.
If NEC has been doing so here's my problem. Okay, didn't we just have an election in Montserrado County?
When 2020, yes.
Yes. So how has the database structure changed from 2020 to now? You're still measuring the same things.
Right, because they didn't register any new persons. It stayed at 2.
No, but I'm talking about the structure. You're still registering polling places. You're still registering precincts. You're still registering counties. So they should be using the same data structure that they used in 2020. So that should be available to inspect. So, as I said, they can give the political parties a copy of the database. The political parties can then take that copy of the database and they can stress test it. You can buy tools that allow you to put millions of rows of dummy data in there to stress test the system to see how it will perform if it's filled to capacity. That's whether the data is in the cloud.
It's important that they get a snapshot of that database.
My background is SQL Server. You can use profiling tools. Microsoft has something built in called SQL Server Profiler that would tell you what the cost of each query is and how long it takes, and it will allow you to optimize your queries and things like that. So at the end of the day, as I've said before, every problem Liberia faces has been solved somewhere in the world before. None of this is rocket science. As a matter of fact, this is as simple as it gets when it comes to database design and reporting and function. It's straightforward. You got people,
our tendency is to make everything look complex.
Polling places, you got precincts.
And it's not even what?
Okay.
If you look at it, the net website, what is it?
Roll up into precincts roll up into districts roll up into counties. It's just that simple.
Less than 6,000 polling places.
Okay.
2.5 million people.
In a data system that can handle millions of records.
Millions and millions, sometimes even billions.
So
it's not an issue.
My point is the data structure should not have changed from the 2020 Montserrado election to now. It doesn't matter. Except they had a contractor who they terminated a relationship with, and there were certain deficits in terms of the reporting, and they had to bring in somebody new to do reporting. Well, and I agree with that. But my point is that the core structure of the database, where you break it down by county, the counties haven't changed. I don't think the number of precincts changed. I don't think the number of polling places changed. So you're still working with the same data structure. And here's what that means, Isaac. If you had purchased a reporting engine, right? Mm-hmm. You would still be using the same reports. Because all you're doing now is saying, I want to print, right? I want to print the precinct and pass the precinct ID. So let me, what we did, when I headed up the report design team at the Washington State Department of Transportation, we literally built what's called a reports library, where we had a standard set of reports that people could run. Okay? And they might come and say, you know what, we want to change this particular report.
Right, that's custom reporting. Then you modify whatever.
Custom reporting.
So it's just, hopefully some of the political parties, officials, some NEC officials watch this and they understand how it's important, how important it is.
This is when it comes to elections, this is an emergency. Okay? Right now is a 3-alarm fire that everybody should be looking at.
And we don't have time. We really do not have time.
Because this is the same NEC that is telling you that between now and July of next year, when they have to close the voter rolls, they're going to register 2,000 people with 2 million people, 2.5 million people with biometric IDs.
No, probably more, because since 2020, that was the last time they voter roll, voter registration. So that's nearly 3 more years of new voters that will be added on. So that's about 250 to 300,000 people easily. So the roll could actually probably get to 3 million people.
Okay, so you got to do that in the rainy season where electricity is spotty, but you're gonna give 3 million biometric IDs. How is that possible? So even if you said that these people were working 7 days a week,
you want to do the math?
Yeah, if they were working 7 days a week and they have to register 3 million people. Okay, so give them 200 days.
So how many a day?
They have to register 15,000 people every day.
That's not even realistic.
For 200 days.
And they probably won't start the actual registration. You can't even get in 200 days, sir, because
I'm being generous.
Yeah, by the time they start the actual plan, laying out what they want to do, getting all the pieces in place, selecting a provider, except they got all of those things already set up, which I doubt, because I don't even know if they have the funding yet. So all of this is really, really going to be challenging. Political parties need to be more involved in this process. They need to at least have some kind of working group, right, that focuses in on interests of the opposition to ensure the transparency and accountability in this 2023 election process. Otherwise, it will be very, very difficult. Oh, this person
I don't think it will cause chaos. Quite frankly, let me tell you something. If the political parties don't get involved and have a team that deals with addressing these data issues, if NEC comes back and says we are one, I agree with them.
But if you don't protect yourself, the whole idea of elections...
I am not going to agree with any person who's going to show up at the election and say, we think we were cheated.
No, you got to bring facts. That's just the reality. I mean, like even this election, right? Even if there was any cheating, I've seen nothing of substance directly from the tally sheets that disagrees with anything that NEC has posted on their website. That's the first step. If Unity Party can bring tally sheets that show different from the numbers on there, then that can start the conversation. But beyond that, we can start a conversation about cheating.
Okay, so Tukpah, this guy Tukpah said the NEC data appears to have changed from one IT provider to another. And that's not how it's supposed to work. That's not how it's supposed to work.
No, that person is supposed to use whatever you have.
It's supposed to use there. So it is the responsibility of the NEC to say, this is the database we're using. This is the tool. These are the tools that we are using. We own these tools. And anybody who comes in to work for us, these are the tools you have to use. You can't allow the vendor to come in and say, you know what? I don't know anything about those tools. Okay, so I'm going to bring my own tools. And then when they leave, the NEC is stuck with dealing with tools that they don't know. So this is where we are. I mean, this thing is seriously effed up.
So hopefully this clears up some of the doubts that people had about these elections and the specific.
Now let me tell you another remedy I would request.
Okay.
I would also request the resignation of the chairman of the NEC. And here's why. Okay? when you are in a position of trust.
So this beside a conflict of interest and all the money issue.
Forget
right?
about. I don't even know what her conflict of interests are.
Okay.
Okay. When you are in a position of trust, you can't lie to the people.
Oh, well, question. I agree on that one.
All she's let me give you an example. Wells Fargo was down for 5 hours last night. Okay, you couldn't access their site, but they sent. If you try to go to their site and you put in your username and it failed, it gave you a message. We're working to fix this. The fact that the NEC chairman could not say, we found an error in the reporting system that we didn't find before. So all we've done is we've disabled the aggregate function when you go to print, and we're working to fix it. The fact that she couldn't do that, and she lied and says there was an attempted hacking of the system. Okay? And I will say this again. That's not just a lie. It's a damn lie. Because here's the thing. When you design these systems, the database that people can make changes to, you don't access them from the internet. So there's no reason that this system should be connected to the internet, the back-end database. That's one. Number two, if she claimed there was an attempted hacking and they had a backup of the database, all they had to do was remove the existing database and replace it with the backup, and the thing would have come right back up. Okay? So I would be calling for her removal. Because what she said about the attempted hacking is a lie. It's 100% a lie.
But I mean, that's obvious, you know. So they just hacked it and then they left it for them to take over the site.
Right. I mean, you know how many people get attempted hacks every year? But here's the thing. According to her, the inconsistency in the data was a result of an attempted hacking. Then it's no longer an attempted hack.
It was hacked.
It was hacked. So you're saying this data is wrong because somebody hacked us.
And that's the point. The data was not wrong. The output for the print call was wrong. That's what it was. So unfortunately, again, maybe her underlings did not explain to her what the real situation is.
It's her job to know.
I don't disagree.
This is the most important function of the NEC. It's her job to know.
I don't disagree. So it's up to
and if
now.
I were in the position of president, I would fire her yesterday.
The president cannot hit the button for anything. It got to be like overly egregious.
I mean, you can't have an institution like this that has had problems in every election. And then you have a situation where the person in charge of it just lies to the public. And the assumption here is, you know, this is a problem for Mr. Weir also. Because the assumption here is that there are no Liberian professionals who could look at this and tell you it's a lie.
But that's one of our biggest problems. We don't respect our qualified people. We don't utilize them as we need to, even if they are just there to say, provide oversight or counter check to ensure that whatever other professionals they hire are there, we don't utilize them. So how can we expect to get the best out of our fellow Liberians if we don't appreciate what they bring to the table? That's just a national problem. So let's look at some of the comments we had earlier that we probably need to address. Well, this guy said there's no one to trust in Liberia. They lie to us and they fool the people. Well, that's our governments, or have been our governments for a while.
So the parties have to, listen, the parties are the ones that have to demand, not just on their own, but with the international community, that we are heading into an election, and these are the problems we are seeing now. They need to be resolved.
And these were the legacy problems that were there from, you know, whatever time, that people just came and did a superficial resolution of, and did not really resolve. That's why they need a snapshot of this database as of 2020 for them to understand what's in it and how it feeds. That's what the opposition need to demand. So I don't know if this is true or not, but if this is true, that's a problem. That the chairman of the NEC was with what? Developer Brown Weah. Why is he calling her Weah? Is the last name Weah for real? Was with Thomas Falad all week in Lofa. I don't believe that. I didn't see any pictures of her. So this is something where to just answer this person. No, Mr. Cummings is not being modest. He has talked about the need for data, but he hasn't broken that down to the level of specifics we discuss or how we envision data from a national perspective. That will come as he talks more and more about his platform. But definitely, Mr. Cummings believes that improving the level of technology or the use of technology in government is very essential. He believes the fundamental building blocks include identity of both individuals and assets in the country, and it will help every respect. Basically, every governance system needs data of its citizens, and that is where he has to go to help move our country forward. And he recognizes that, and he will, engage and address that more and more as we move ahead. You want to add anything to that, George?
No, I don't want to add anything to it, man. Like I said, this is just
you can't get so upset with this that it sours you on saying anything else.
It's disgusting. I mean, the level of incompetence is just really disgusting.
Yeah. Our man Safa Dixie, a complete audit is needed of the entire infrastructure.
Yes. Safa is a database expert.
Yeah.
Okay. It needs to, and what bothers me is that the people who are supposed to know, who are running for office, they're not putting this front and center. You know what Stalin said? Stalin said it's not important who votes. It's who counts the votes that are important. That's important.
Oh, yeah. Counting, that's where all the problems come. That's where it's created from, whether it's valid to be counted or not, whether it's stuffed in, And with the influx of foreigners to the country and them getting national ID, which will enable them to be able to register to vote, that could be another major issue that's not being looked at. We have a lot of foreigners coming to this country that are getting opportunities that Liberians don't even have. So we have a lot of problems, folks. We really, really do have a lot of problems we need to work on, but it takes some level of collaboration. We can't be so angry at each other for some of the negative things that have happened, across political parties, that we can't come to the table and be able to say, look, for the good of the nation, we need to look at this database. We need to talk to NEC. We need to stand for these issues. And there's room for that. So, the opposition needs to wake up to the reality. I believe Mr. Cummings in his last speech clearly sent out the olive branch to everybody that as an opposition community, as people who want a better Liberia, we should be able to collaborate on some of these things. So the door is open. Let's all of us use that door to come in, sit at a table, and discuss some of these various challenges that the opposition community or the country is facing, and try to resolve some of them and get a clear understanding of what NEC is doing, how NEC will progress from today to October 6, 2023, for us to understand how the elections will be conducted. Otherwise, it could be a recipe for chaos, and nobody wants chaos. We want a smooth election, a smooth transition, in a country. So this one was specifically for you, George. How do you correlate the census to the database?
Well, at the end of the day, my thing has been, with the national ID. The problem that you have is, okay, so the census would look at the entire population. Okay? And this is what I've said, and I think we've had this discussion before.
We have.
when you look at the biometric IDs, everybody in the country is supposed to have a biometric ID, or let's say not everybody who is old enough to go to school and older. All right. So everybody under the age of 6 will not be included in that set.
Right. So that's
okay. So if the National Identification Registry was then giving out these biometric IDs, the only thing that they would need to do is to give the NEC access to something called a data view that will pull everybody in the database who will be eligible to vote as of a certain date, 18 or older. And then the NEC will be looking at a subset of the data. So in that case, the NEC is not creating the data. They are only a consumer of it. But because the National Identity Registry has no money,
yes,
the NEC is working on the squeaky wheel principle, right? Where they say, well, we have to do this election. NIR has no money, so give us the money. We will do the identification. It's not their function.
No, it's not a core function. It's not
their core function. Because even after the NEC does the IDs, the NIR still needs that data. They still need all of it. And what you're going to end up having is one biometric database that's held by the NIR and another biometric database that's being held by the NEC. And then every 3 years, you have to marry those two. Whereas if all of the data were held by the NIR, all you had to do was just continuously pull from that view. And every time somebody gets registered, you update, when you refresh the view, you will see that person in the system.
Okay, I think this has been wonderful. As usual, we got the interlopers here trying to distort what we're trying to say and disrupt it, but we got to ignore them. And you know, some of these comments are wonderful. Like this lady said, the opposition folks, they have to be aggressive with this. They got to go after it.
So Omar just raised another point where he said, but everybody under 6 should have already been identified because they all require basic inoculations. So, no, but hold on. But this is how, you know, government doesn't function in a silo. So when you look at Omar, the Bureau of Vital Statistics, that's under the Ministry of Health, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're the ones who will record births, and that birth data needs to be rolled up so that the people at the identification registry, because you have to issue a birth certificate at some point.
Josh, all this data, like you say, is so integrated. From the time somebody is born, every agency that uses data should have some anticipation of, for labor, what kind of person will turn 18 in terms of job creation. For the schools, what's the capacity of schools? What do we need? For the healthcare system, what is the overload on our system? People are born in X, Y, Z locations and stuff. So that's why data is everything. Data is so encompassing and affects everywhere in the country, but we have not taken data seriously.
So the man says the biometric data will help LISGIS. Is LISGIS responsible to do the census?
Yeah.
Okay, but okay, how are they working with everybody else?
People work in silos. That's the problem. People work in silos. But I think it's good to keep these things short. We've done like an hour and change. So I will let you close today. Whatever thoughts.
Well, I mean, you know, at this point, I think I've said everything I need to say. You know, they need to seriously look at the job that the director of the NEC is doing. She came out, she put out a statement that was entirely false. She basically lied and said that there was an attempted hacking. There's no attempted hacking. We've looked at the page, the source code for the page, and we've seen that you people have no structure and you don't know what you're doing. Okay, it's obvious you don't know what you're doing. And if the parties don't seriously get together and determine what they're going to do, there will be trouble in 2023.
And, you know, there's so much discussion around peace in Africa right now. And one of the primary impediments to peace is election.
Transparency.
Yes. A lot of dissatisfaction occurs from there. We have to let people vote be valued, be respected. So it's important that we get this right. Hopefully the opposition political parties will be able to get together on these kind of critical topics, bring their database experts and others together to be able to make a case as to why the situation at NEC is so tenuous and could affect, you know, our national peace going forward. So I want to say thank you to everybody who took the time to come and watch, even those who, we know you're learning. We know somebody like Bobby Benito who's, you know, sometimes used to be a nice speaking, but unfortunately now, because he's so consumed with the CDC, he's just trying to be disruptive.
He's hungry. All that noise he's making, that's hunger.
I mean, that's true. That begin hungry.
You know, when you're hungry, you have to take positions that are even against your own interest. Okay? So all that noise he's making, he's just hungry. His job is to go back to the NEC lady and say, you see, I will custom the people for you. Give me $5. That's all his job is.
Damn, Bobby, you $5 begin.
So but basically, anyway, all he is a parasite that wants to sit on the edge of government and think he's going to get something.
And we have a lot of that. I can't understand how people would be satisfied with scraps when if they were in power, they could get so much more. But
yeah, but if your IQ is 67, that's all you're going to get. Okay? So when they say, when you enter a conversation and you yell, when you who Meata Dakina, who is in Liberia looking for a job?
Double Bobby Benito.
Oh. Yeah. So when your IQ is 67 and you're hanging around waiting for scraps to fall off, that's what you do. Bobby Benito were in America before?
No, you're in Europe somewhere.
Okay.
They used to beat him up as a semi-professional boxer.
Oh, I see.
His brain is rattled. So I understand.
So your IQ is even lower than 67.
It's even lower than where it was 67.
Bobby, boss man, you gotta try. You gotta try harder, man.
Bobby, you know I like you, my beginning. You know I like.
I don't like him. He's stupid.
No,
and I don't like stupid people.
You're different. I've been knowing Bobby. Bobby, my beginning. I like Bobby, but Bobby is what you I say a mercenary or Facebook mercenary. But you got to develop pride in yourself, Bobby. You can't let people use you. Because it's not your nature to just come and just be insulting people for no reason. But for you to have come to this point at this time, it's sad. You got your daughter, you got your wife. Try and be responsible. Don't just be coming out to insult people. That's not what politics is about. You know, we can respect each other and differ vehemently, you know, vociferously, have different viewpoints. But that does not mean insult is a part of the equation.
But let me just say this, okay, Bobby? This is technology. There's no, it's not, I don't have a strongly held belief that something is green. These are things that can be measured. These are things that can be objectively verified. Okay? So when it comes to technology, these are things that we are talking about that can be measured. We are not guessing. It's not the way I feel or anything like that. So if you think that what I've said is wrong, I would challenge the chairman of the NEC to bring her data people, and let's ask them the questions, and I bet you they would not last 5 minutes. So that's it there.
All right, folks. Thank you for watching. We'll come to you next week. Most likely the topic will be healthcare, but we're not 100% sure yet. But healthcare is
okay.
Really, really a critical topic that we need to
maybe we can get Bobby's head examined.
All right, folks. You have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the week. Peace.